Hi everybody, this is Hanna here to do a drawing lesson with you. So this is a drawing class for beginners, but anybody's welcome to join us. You can challenge yourself in any way you wish, but we are going to be working with simple objects that you might be able to find in the house. And we're going to break them down into the simplest shapes. So we have a cylinder, we have a rectangular pencil box, so thinking of cubes, more cylinders. I actually don't have a sphere, but yeah, no, I really don't have a sphere here. Maybe this could be a half sphere. And then even some more complicated shapes that are made up of maybe simpler forms. So we're going to experiment and explore this. I'm also looking for like more of a triangle, or I'm thinking more of a cone. I don't have that too much, but let me show you something a little bit more complicated. At some point, this would be a great object to draw because you do have the cylinder, you do have a sphere, you have kind of a cone, another cylinder. This is a kind of a sphere that's broken down, and then you have this rectangular shape. So something like this requires a bit more observation and breaking down of the forms. But for us, we're going to start with simple forms today, and I want you to first begin with showing you the different tools that you could be using. Okay, so I have various tools. We have a pencil, and I would like you to first start off by just kind of use the pencil. Try holding it this way. See what it's like to hold it like this. Hold on, maybe more like this. Yeah, like that. That's how I want you to hold it. See different ways of holding it. See what it's like to make straight lines, and because people always say, I can't even draw a straight line, but I bet you can. And also working quickly like this, just experiment. And so this is a kind of playing page. This is sketching. There's nothing that's going to be finished, and the whole class will be about making simple, experimenting with these simpler forms. A couple other things that you might want to try using in the future even, I'll introduce them right now. This is an ebony pencil. It's a little bit more slippery, but it has a nice kind of grayish silver sheen, and you can really do some nice not blending, but shading with it. So it's really very useful tool to become familiar with. We have charcoal, which you can see how dark that can get, and you can smudge that some. This is a dark compressed charcoal. Also, you will need some sort of pencil sharpener. Any type of eraser that's larger is a good idea to have. And these are some great erasers that at some point, if you want to continue with drawing, they allow you to do some great detail. Like, for example, if you were doing a highlight in an eye, you could use this. It also comes in a thicker, or with a thicker eraser, so that's useful as well. So anyway, these are some of the tools, but let's begin with our first lesson, which we are going to do. Let me move this out of the way. Actually, I'll get these other objects out of the way because I've decided to do a box and a cylinder for the first. All right, so let's work with this box. Maybe I could put it on here. Let me see if everybody can see that. Yeah, that's probably better, and hopefully you can see my drawing. So I'm going to flip this over. As a matter of fact, as you're working, you could be flipping your sketch pad around to make things easier. I'll start with the pencil. Okay, I'm going to draw this box. I think I'll put this a little bit at an angle. It's always good to draw things on an angle because why? Because you get more depth. If you draw it just straight on, you really don't get that much perspective if you just show one plane, maybe two planes, this plane and this plane. But here you're showing 1, 2, 3 planes, really. So that gives you a more interesting drawing. Not always, but it's a good thing to think about. So you can see, if you want to, and usually, of course, you're much further away from the still life than I am, but this gives you an idea. So if you just take that line, you can see, and you have to let it go, how that line pretty much aligns with that. And this is one way of measuring. And then you're going to estimate this other line. Of course, it's going to be parallel. It's a box, so it's parallel. I don't know if I did that parallel, but... And then there's this line. So you can also estimate this line. Okay, you can see that I'm working, maybe that's a little light for you. I'm working loosely like this right now. I'm not holding my pencil like this. That gives me a little more control, but actually I can do that, but sometimes I like to work like this. I recommend people try it. All right, now I'm going to just drop these lines down. These straight lines, they're not completely, there is a little bit of craftsmanship here, but we are keeping it very simple to the basic forms. The details, the nuances will be added later. And then I'm going to connect this. One thing you might immediately see is perhaps this box that I've drawn, or this rectangle, is a little bit, you know, maybe it's too not high, tall enough. So there is a way to measure that. So I'm just eyeballing it, but you could, how you would measure is you could take this measurement and you do this from a distance and you measure it 1, 2, 2.5, it looks like, about. I will be talking about that a little bit more later. Right now I just want to focus on this. But there, you should always be measuring things. And one of the reasons I also want to extend these lines is to get into the habit of extending lines, because if you're working on a more complicated still life and you have something back here, you can kind of use these lines as measuring points. All right, I added this line, which obviously nobody can see this, but I just put it right in there. And so you could see what it would look like. One thing that's very useful is to find the center of this box. So you can estimate, of course, all right? But one way of doing that for the future, or things that are more complex, to be more precise, is to make the X. Make the X. Notice how many lines I have to use to get this to work, it seems like. So don't be afraid of that. Oh, it doesn't seem centered to me. Let me just get rid of that and try again. Sometimes it's great to use these tools, but at the same time your eye is a great tool. So let me just do it up here first also, because that might be just a little bit easier. Yeah, that's better. So I have found the center. That means I break this down into the center. Okay, so let's see. That is, yeah, that's pretty good. That is the center. There's also this center line, so that I'm going to estimate as being here. The great thing about still life is usually nobody will see the still life, they'll just see your final drawing. But the reason we want to practice accuracy is because as you work with more complicated forms, let's say you end up doing a portrait, you do want to have the ability to be very, to find the proportions, to find the lines, etc. Okay, so the other thing that this is useful for is when you find the center of the object that you're drawing. So for example, let me just see if I can, I'll shift this over. This would work well here. Now, let's say we're working on a cube. Here's my cube. Sorry about that. Okay, let's move that. And again, we find the center, and we find the center, and we find the center. And this helps us with drawing a circle. Really, really helps with drawing a circle. And then you could, well, this isn't going to work for me, but you know, oh yes, sure it will. Actually, so you can draw this box, and let's say I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I'm going to like this, and then you can put the little axle in there. So you have drawn tires or wheels or something like this. All right, so that's just an example of a simple form that are very sketchy. Again, I don't want you to be, I'm looking for a kind of a, you can, you know, I know that people will be wanting to do just one line and work very, you know, just with one line, but I'm suggesting that you work in this kind of sketchy, looser fashion, and then eventually, as everything comes into place, you can darken your lines. In the second part of this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use, how to draw something that is cylindrical. So we did the box, and we will continue to work with the box. Many things, even this flashlight came in a box. So you can start with the box and draw the flashlight, or you can start with the cylinder. So again, we're keeping everything very simple. So I'm going to start drawing the some ellipses. Always practice before you even get started, just drawing some ellipses, going around and around. I am using the Ebony Pencil this time because it's hard to get these ellipses to be just exact, so it's a matter of constantly trying again and again. Anyway, we are going to start with the cylinder for the flashlight. We are just working with simple forms. We're not getting into any of the details. So I'm drawing a simple cylinder, trying to make my lines as straight as I can. You can always flip your drawing a different way. Maybe this is a little easier to do straight lines. I like using multiple lines because I think it just kind of adds to the drawing. So one thing about measuring, which is holding out a pencil as I showed you in the slides and closing one eye and extending your whole arm, and you're usually far away from a still life, so you would measure. But since I'm close to this, I'm just going to pick it up and say, okay, this is a separate area. So let's say I see how big that is. One of these, 1, 2. So there's about 2 of these in here. Let's try that again. It's a little awkward, but yeah, pretty much 2. So I can say that if I break this down here, you could see that. Let me just move this here and see if you can notice that. Let's say this is my cylinder here, and this is the bottom part. I think it would be a little longer. So let's say 1 and 2. So that's about right. So about here is to the top. And then this area here, you can make it into a simple line and keeping it like this. And then we can start working with our ellipses. Just getting a line here. Also very important is to drop a line in the center of your drawing. So I'm going to put this down and drop a line because this kind of lines up everything, making sure, and it works with more complicated objects. So I'm going to start making this part of the flashlight, and I'm going to just turn it a little bit towards myself so I can see it, and even working more with the ellipses, just kind of understanding it. I could go to this lower part, which is dark. As you can see, it's dark here. Might be nice to do this and when you're drawing and you're working with this, you can do it from different perspectives or different, you can put it on its side or whatever, try different viewpoints. Okay, so there's that part. And then this part here also has this rounded part. So again, keeping it very simple, not getting into any of the details. Like there's a lot of details here. I'm not going to do that. So another thing to do is, the only thing I might add to it, and I'll approximate the place of where it is the light switch. Just kind of add that there. And to find the center of it, I've made an X. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. I could see a little bit of this side of it here, and a tad of this side right here. Okay. So one of the interesting things about this flashlight is, and then there's more detail on here, but I'm not getting into that. It will take longer to do the detail. So that's just enough detail like that. But let's look at this. Mine's a little bit smaller than the life-size one, the real one, but it's okay. And you can see there's a lot of these interesting details which you would do if you had more time, or you can do that on your own. You could, but everything has to, if you want it to be accurate, you really just have to make everything almost like, not measure necessarily, but just really try to be as accurate as you can with these shapes. Anyhow, one thing I do want to show you that I think is interesting is, so this could go inside a box, but let me show you this other thing. So we started off with doing boxes. So one thing that we reviewed, or maybe I did this in the last video, did I? Let me review it again in case. So making a box, and I did show you how to make the X. Let me see, did I do that? perhaps. And you don't have, there we go. And making another one, and another one. Actually, I meant to make this one back here. So let me get rid of this. So this is very useful for many things, making the spheres, or the, sorry, not the spheres, the circles. I'm doing it a little faster than I normally would. Just trying to get this, okay. And there. And then if you do the second one here, this will give you, and an axle, this will give you the tires, or the wheels. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to mention is if you do things with, one of the things I do in class with the boxes is we practice drawing a lot of chairs. Now, we work from observation, but the first thing we will do is just learn about the idea that most chairs, of course this varies, are box-like, but I mean sometimes the legs have different shapes, and the back isn't always straight. I mean, there's a great variety, but starting with a box for the chair is a good idea, and then you can, you know, alter it. Again, I'm using the Ebony Pencil, which is very sort of slippery. I recommend that you try it, though. It's fun. And you can even design your own chairs, or you can basically, you know, draw your whole house with this, because most of the things, like couches, various chairs, most furniture, you can start off with rectangles, boxes, and so on. So you can being aware of that is very important. And I'll put it on a little carpet here. And it's nice if you could, you know, can think about shadow, even though I've kind of already made this whole thing dark. But you can consider the idea of shadow coming from some direction. One of my assignments that I give students is to draw a chair as a self-portrait. So it's kind of a fun, creative endeavor where you can work with shading and really choosing or designing the chair that represents you. Okay, thanks. That's it for now.